Okay, everyone, welcome to our practice tonight. Um, Welcome to those who are new joining us. My name is Lama Rod. I use he, him pronouns. I am back on the land of the Muskogee and the Creek in Cherokee, um, which we call Atlanta now. And um, been away for a couple of weeks. I have um, some more personal time coming up over the next couple of months. So we will be putting out um, just an adjusted schedule for our practice. But I've just been away. I took a break um, so to visit some friends and family on the East Coast, up on the East Coast. So it's good to be with you all again today. It's good to have people joining us from different places and so forth. Um, yes, Mother Aisha Ali in Conyers, Georgia now. Conyers. I haven't been to Conyers in a while. But welcome. Welcome to the land. Um, and as always, go ahead and we can start adding prayer requests. So if you're new, we just add prayer requests in the chat box, and I'll lift those up. I'll also have time for questions tonight. So go ahead if you already have a question. I think the last time we met, I said I would have time for questions. So in the ask a question box, you can put questions in. So don't put questions in the chat box because I won't get to them. Put it in the ask a question um, box, and I'll get to those at the end of our practice. Um, you know, thank you for doing your land acknowledgments. So if you joined us yesterday for mother practice, Matara practice, I talked a lot about land and land acknowledgments, and I've been doing a lot of uh, new practices. Actually, I was doing a lot of these practices while I've been away, so I've spent some time out, um, like in the woods and by water. But I've been doing some new practices that are around connecting to the land, um, connecting to the earth, um, and really reconnecting to this kind of natural somatic data that has been lost to us because of systems of power and oppression like capitalism and slavery, the Industrial Revolution, which transitioned many cultures out of this kind of agrarian um, worldview and lifestyle into much more of a science, technology, consumption-based model, and that all has taken us so far away from the land. Of course, as you know, part of my work is about understanding the body and the land, which is, we do a lot of this in our medicine Buddha practice. I feel like we can't really experience true healing without the land. But as so much of my understanding of this is about the body and how trauma becomes this experience that disconnects us from the earth because it makes it hard for us to be in our bodies, right? So when we're disassociated, it makes it very hard for us to feel connected to the earth. I feel that the physical body is like an antenna, this sensitive kind of expression of ourselves that keeps us connected to the physicality and the elemental energy of the earth and all the elements of water and air and fire and everything else. Um, so when we're doing, so this is all coming back to land acknowledgement. So when we're doing land acknowledgements, it's, you know, we have to, as we talked about yesterday, we have to go a little further in acknowledging the land and just saying that, oh, I live on the unceded lands, the stolen lands. That's really wonderful. And we have to kind of get out of this whole performativity of, of wokeness. And everything I'm saying is this is actually all the writing that I'm also doing for my new book, which is called New Saints. So New Saint, or actually it's the New Saints. So this revisioning of sainthood, and placing sainthood really just a revisioning of the Bodhisattva ideal, which is the Buddhist sainthood tradition. Just revisioning that for now, for a contemporary world that's complex, that's in crisis, right? Where the goal of our practice shouldn't be to become clairvoyant or to walk through walls or to fly or to be immortal, as the Bodhisattva tradition can push us towards. It's really not about that, but this new sainthood that I'm envisioning is really about how do I just come back to my body? How do I come back to the land? How do I get complex, right? How do I understand that perfection is suffering? How do we allow ourselves to love having fun? I think having fun is really wonderful. Like how do we have fun and also still work to get free? And this work that I'm working on is also really reimagining enlightenment. Because I think we just don't get it. We think it's like you get enlightened. It's like, oh, it's like a parade and it's balloons and and it's really not that. It's just really quite subtle and nuanced, right? The states of jhana that some of you practice in insight and Theravada tradition, these states of consciousness are just extremely subtle and nuanced, right? And I've never gotten and understood how people talk so vividly. Oh, well, no, how people, actually, this is what I want to say. I've never, I won't say that because, but scrap all of that, this is what I want to say. Recently, I have wondered how, nope, that's not what I want to say. Recently, I want to start again. Recently, I've come to understand that the people who are talking about these experiences of consciousness and and what they think about other worlds and the unseen world and this and that, a lot of people who are teaching this, particularly in Buddhist spaces, are people who actually don't have experience with this phenomena of jhanas, different states of consciousness and samadhi and other, and the unseen world. Like they really actually, they're just kind of reading from a book. And what I have found in my work, and this is what you're discovering and understanding about me and what I do, is that this is actually just coming from what I'm experiencing in the moment, right? Because a lot of you come to me and you say, oh, but I read this in the book. Quite honestly, I don't want to say I don't read and study, but like there are a lot of things that I don't read or study because it's like, why do I need to read a book to describe something that I'm very clearly looking at and experiencing in the moment? Why am I diverting to a book when I can just actually look at something and say, oh, this is what it is, and this is part of what I've been encouraging you all to do for a while is that, like, you at some point you have to start trusting your intuition, right? And that's been a really huge part of my practice. Even that's something that was encouraged by my group teacher Nola Rinpoche, was just to do what feels right, what feels liberatory. If it feels freeing, then that's what you should do, right? Regardless of what a book says or a teaching says. And being a part of different kinds of communities that I found myself a part of, like magic communities and covens and shamanic spaces, and studying with these people who are actually considered whatever teachers, leaders in these spaces, and then taking that and then putting that into conversation with my root training, which is Tantric Buddhism, and then coming out with the synthesis, where everything's true, but there are certain ways in which certain traditions get closer into what's happening, right? And some traditions don't. Tantric Buddhism doesn't explain everything, and so then I rely on other traditions, and I take those other traditions, I put into conversations with what I know about Buddhism, it's like the theme song to the facts of life, right? You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and then you have the facts of life. It's very much like me. I take this, I take that, I put them together, then you get Monday Nights with Lama Rod. I got a little far from the original point that I was making. So, getting back to the land recognition, right? Performativity. So at some point you just have to start getting real with things. You have to start getting real and say, well, this land is, particularly if you're in America, right, North America, and South America too, this land, and other countries, but I'm just saying this is where I'm located in North America. This land holds an energetic history of violence. And being here in the South, lots of it. I live on Civil War land. It's like Atlanta is just this big Civil War battlefield. You walk around my neighborhood, it's just like all kinds of like little plaques and signs talking about some war, some little like troop that marched through here. During the Civil War, as many may not know that Atlanta was burned to the ground in the Civil War, and the land still remembers that. It still remembers the people who lived here, the Creek, the Cherokee, there are other groups of people who have occupied this land over thousands and thousands of years that we don't know who they were, but we know that they were here, so there's been countless lives and narratives and communities that have been supported by the land. There's been countless violences that have occurred on the land as well. And to acknowledge the land is to acknowledge the reality of that trauma, that violence, right? So when we acknowledge the land, we have to acknowledge that, and we have to touch into that reality that this land still echoes with genocide and wars and famine, that many of us are living on unmarked graves of slaves, and here, unmarked graves of slaves and Confederate and Union soldiers. and the graves of Native communities as well. So there's a little bit of sadness that it begins to arise. There's a little bit of heartbreak right there. If you're joining me from the Lonesome Valley course, from the grieving course, this is part of what our work is moving into together, is turning our minds to this collective grief. And of course, grief, this internal process, this internal work of relating to, connecting to this sense of loss, of change. And acknowledging it. To acknowledge the land means to acknowledge the heartbreak and the trauma and the sorrow. And it's not meant to be overwhelmed, because again, as we practice over and over again, our mind, everything is an expression of the mind. So what I feel overwhelmed by is just this illusion, this illusion that there is something that can be overwhelming, when in reality, when we talk about the nature of mind itself, that's impossible. And we feel overwhelmed also because we're so deeply attached to the sense of ego, the sense of self. The self makes us feel small, and when we get small, we get consumed, we get eaten. So when you're really, really into this sense of ego, this is who I am, this is, everything, right? The ego is just a thought that we just really take seriously. You take this thought really seriously, this is who I am, right? And you get really concrete and static and stuck around this idea, and then that begins the suffering. Because we are, in fact, not static and concrete and planet, with fluid, ethereal, dancing energies, right? We're nothing but this expression of space and emptiness and potential. Potential meaning energy. That's everything, including medicine Buddha. So the grief, right? The grief, the heartbreak that we connect to, this is just an experience that I'm having. So, let's begin our practice just by reflecting on this more. So we're going to start with this reflection, and this is incredibly important for any practice. There has to be this deep reflection, this deep, simple reflection, that, the world is a dream. That's indigenous wisdom, that's tantric wisdom, right? The world is a dream, the world is an illusion, the sense of self is an illusion. How can I find freedom and fluidity? And how do I continue to be in the world at the same time and not bypass the world? I know many of you, this is maybe your first time really contemplating something like this. And this is, for those of you who are not familiar with some of the higher levels, higher practices of Vajrayana Tantra, but this is the doorway into dream yoga, right? This is the doorway into dream yoga, into lucid dreaming, basically, right? In your waking life, you have to start thinking seriously about how the world is nothing but a dream. It's nothing but this illusion. So again, the world is a dream. The sense of self is a dream. It's an illusion. I'm making this up. And at the same time, it's still real. There's a real thing happening. Now I want to invite you to come with me we're going to go a little further. We're going to stay with the land and this practice of land acknowledgement. But before we go further, I want you to call into the space your benefactors. So whomever your benefactors are right now, be it the 7 homecomings or just your guides, your protectors, whomever it may be. But you can move to the 7 homecomings as well. But call into the space. As I like to say, call into the space your folks. Call your folks in to help support us as we go a little deeper. When you get your folks in, again, you just begin to go through the basic first part of our practice, which is just beginning to imagine that they're radiating the energy of care into the space around us, taking some time to connect to that energy. And if you're in this particular place right now, letting that energy of care begin to touch into whatever sadness, anxiety, heartbrokenness, or grief you're carrying, you're holding on to. Let it begin to kind of like saturate it, like hold, attend to that discomfort. And in turn, imagining that you're letting go of this energy, this heartbreak, this discomfort over into the care of your folks, your benefactors. So letting go, right? So seeing, naming, this experience, seeing it as happening in your experience, experiencing the heartbreak, the suffering, and then saying, I am offering this to the care of my benefactors so they can help me hold this heartbreak. So they can help me hold this heartbreak. And as always, I'm encouraging you to move deeper into trust, into trusting your circle, into trusting yourself. Always, every time we practice, I want us to move deeper into trust, to move deeper into to let ourselves be held a little more, a little more at a time, practice after practice, and trusting that we will be caught or held and supported when we allow ourselves to kind of lean in. And so as you're doing this, I want to just evoke the energy of Medicine Buddha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha, which means, Medicine Buddha, please think of me. Please come here. Please be here. Please hold me. Please hold the world. Please care for us. For those of you who are new, the mantras, and so this is a mantra that I created. So you can go back and tell your lamas that Lama Rod is making shit up. Kino is a word that means to think of. Kino, and that's a word that we use to supplicate a realized master, a deity. So it's called honorific language, so it means again to think of me. We often use Kino when we're talking about a teacher. Often this is where I learned Kino in my training. Lama Kino, right? Guru Kino, Medicine Buddha Kino. Think of me, Medicine Buddha. So anyway, this is what I've constructed for us. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Minla Sangye is the Tibetan name for Medicine Buddha. Okay? So I'll begin to chant that. As I begin to chant that, I want you to imagine that the space around you and this energy of care begins to be charged with the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha, of this being who's only manifesting to free us from suffering and from all the systems, particularly in the relative that perpetuate suffering. Okay? So we'll begin. Om Minla Sangye Hino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino and just noticing whatever shifts is happening in the space around you or inside of you. And I wonder if you can connect to any experiences, any feeling of being safe. Is there safety right now in the practice? Because whatever safety that you experience, any positive thing that you experience, I want you to always know that you can instantly offer that experience out to beings who need this in this moment, who need to feel safe, who need to be free from the grief or the sorrow, whatever benefit you're experiencing. I want you to always, in that moment, think of others. No matter if you're just kind of in the world and you're having like a nice cup of coffee, or you're watching your favorite TV show, or you're having sex, whatever it is, whatever big or small thing that you're enjoying, always offer it out to all beings. May all beings enjoy this. And that practice, which we would often call sympathetic joy, that practice actually begins to dissolve our attachment to the sense of self. And over time we begin to feel the experience of space, of spaciousness. May all beings experience whatever benefit that I'm experiencing in this moment. May all beings be free from sorrow and heartbreak and grief. And when you need to, turning your attention back to your benefactors, your circle, drawing even more deeply from the care that they're radiating into the circle. And again, for some of you who may be new to this benefactor circle, just imagine that you're just calling into the space all the beings who love you, any being who loves you, from family and lovers or friends to past teachers or to deities and spirits and saints or other teachers and elders or clergy, whomever. Call those beings, these beings into the space and have them care for you, have them love you and feel that love. And drink that love deeply in and let that love hold the things that you struggle with. Because before we begin to heal or hold space for something else, or someone else, we need to heal and to hold space for ourselves first. Always start with ourselves. Before we start giving a shit about the world, give a shit about yourself. Give a shit about your body and your mind. Because that's the source from which we begin to love the world from. I can't love or care for the world or have compassion for the world if I don't have that for myself. If I don't have that for myself, then everything else that I do is just performativity. It's just performing care and help. And when we're performing, we know that performance must come to an end. Because there's nothing beneath that performance fueling the work, the labor of caring. So I care for you basically because I care for myself. And the care that you're experiencing is just coming from the care that I have for myself. And the relationship between these two things is that I can't, like the deeper I care for myself, the deeper I'm going to care for the world. right? And for theologians and Christians in the space, Jesus offered his life because he had that level of love for himself, that he could do that profound labor for others around him. It's just letting your benefactors, your folks, care for you. Drinking in that energy of care. Letting the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha hold us and energize this practice. So just a few more moments here before we continue. So let's go a little deeper. So we're going to get back to the land now. So we've set up all these supports to come back to this acknowledging the land. So we're going to continue by just shifting our attention back to the land, as we've done before, noticing the energetic expression of the land, of the earth, and then of course the physical expression of the earth. Okay? Now, we're all on different lands. Okay? So the land that we're all living and practicing on in this moment is very different. Okay? So if you're well, I'll say this instead. Depending on where you're at, I invite you just to begin to think about the history of the land. Now, when you get really, really super creative and detailed about this, so not just, I want you to go to like the beginning of time, and think about the land. How did the land form? I know you're not geologists, you know, some of you maybe, but think, how did the land form? And can you imagine what that looked like? Where did this land come from? From atoms and molecules forming, and it doesn't have to be precise, but just like, where did this come from? Imagining the formation of the land. Of course, this also includes all the elements. Where did the earth come from? How did the earth form? And again, you don't have to be a scientist, right, to know that, but just be creative and imaginative. Can you imagine even forming with the earth? Maybe you're starting from this emptiness as well, and you're coming in to form an existence along with the earth, the land. Because our bodies are an expression of the earth. Our bodies are the earth, as well as all the elements, but definitely the earth. So continuing to imagine the formation of the earth and your body together, coming into existence. When does life begin on the earth or in your body? The plants, the animals, the super small, single cell, tiny organisms that first appeared on the early earth, and then moving from there into more complex life forms. And getting to a point where you're really just deeply seeing, imagining the beauty of life. Not yet human life yet, but just the beauty of like animals and plants before, the impact of humanity. Just the natural world. It's the natural world. when the earth was new and vibrant and full of life. There's a sweetness here. Imagine being within this new life, this vibrant, dynamic life and beauty and pureness, and beginning to feel as if, like, in the same way you're absorbing care from your benefactors, beginning to absorb this pure, brilliant, dynamic, sweet energy from this early earth that you're imagining. Like forest bathing that many of us do. You're bathing in this pureness. Absorbing that energy, letting that energy take care of you, heal you, rejuvenate you, revitalize you. And so I want to move into our mantra at this moment. Onti ata vacancy, ma vacancy, rasa sumungate soha. And so you don't have to sit and chant or anything, but just, sitting and bathing in, absorbing in this energy of the earth, this earth from the past, but this earth is actually still present right now. And letting the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha deepen this experience for you, and surrendering to this experience. Letting it take care of you. So we're going to go a little further into the practice now. So I invite you, if you haven't started, I have a feeling some of you have, I invite you to begin to start imagining the emergence of humans, of communities on the land that you're living on. And as we begin to imagine this, I actually want you to kind of really do just a little bit of focusing on, really the conflicts, the suffering that's happened on the land now. And this is important right now. Because as we're reflecting on the violence that's happened on this pure emergence of this land, as we're doing this, I want you to rely on your circle of care, your benefactors. I want you to rely on the energy, the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha, which we're generating and driving through our mantra practice. And I want you to rely on the still, present, and strong healing energy of the earth that we've been bathing in. So that energy is still present with the earth, with the land. I want you to keep relying on all of these sources of energy as we begin to reflect on the violence, right? So the genocides, the wars, the internments, slavery has happened on the land. Depending on where we're at, we're in different parts, different lands, right? So thinking about your land, and if you don't know, in this space, you can ask the earth to show you, to give you visions of its history as well. And this is quite possible for many of us if we can trust this process. So as we're noticing, touching into the violence, the trauma of the earth, letting that trauma go and letting it be held by your circle of care, because they can hold this. So as I'm touching into, on this land, this history of war and enslavement and genocide, I notice it, I feel it, and I let it go into the care of my benefactors, into the consciousness, the emptiness of Medicine Buddha. And I'm continuing to draw on the care and support from the earth itself and from my benefactors at Medicine Buddha. Okay? So this is the second part of the mantra. Then we're going to do a third part of the mantra as well. So this is our second part. So in the second part, again, just a reminder, touching in to the history of trauma, violence, letting that energy go into the circle of care, into the Medicine Buddha's consciousness, but not holding on to it. Okay? And to whatever extent that you have the capacity right now, of course you can always back out, take a break, set boundaries, but letting the earth show you what it needs to show you. And if it's too much, come out of the practice. Okay? So we begin again. O te a taum begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rajasum unga te soa. Te a taum begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rajasum Just returning your attention back to your circle of care around you. Just letting go of whatever you found yourself moving through, whatever the earth was showing you. Maybe bringing your attention back to the seat, to the weight of your body, making contact with the seat, maybe doing some cleansing breaths, breathing deeply through the nose, out of the mouth, releasing anything that feels uncomfortable, tense, or anxious. Maybe doing some simple movements, shaking it off. And just in general, just turning your, as my teacher used to say, just switching the channel in your mind to something else, and that's okay. All right. So we move into the last part of our mantra. And so in this last practice, I invite you to imagine that the energy that we're absorbing, the energy of care from our benefactors that we've been absorbing, I want you to imagine that you begin to now share it down into the earth. Right? And as you share it into the earth begins to share it with all those we've lifted up in prayer tonight. And really all beings who need this energy of care, that the earth becomes a conduit, a channeler, that we begin to channel into to benefit all beings. So letting the earth be this vessel where we're filling up the earth with this deep energy of care and love, so it can continue to take care of all of us. Okay? We begin. O te a taum beyenze, beyenze ma beyenze, raza sumunga te soa. Te a taum beyenze, beyenze ma beyenze, raza sumunga te soa. Te a taum beyenze, beyenze ma beyenze, raza sumunga te soa. Te a taum beyenze, beyenze ma beyenze, raza sumunga te soa. Te a taum te soha te ata se beyenze ma beyenze raza sumunga te soha. So coming back into the space now, using the weight of the body and the seat to ground you, or using the breath to guide you back into this moment, letting go of any visualization, turning your attention back to your benefactors, your circle of care or your homecoming circle, thanking them for their support, their love, their guidance, for holding you. Imagining that your homecoming circle begins to dissolve into white light, and imagining that that white light is absorbed into your heart center. Turning our attention to the earth, thanking the earth for its love, its guidance, its support, dedicating the intensity or the merit or the energy of this practice to all the beings associated with the land that we're living and working and practicing on. That all earth-bound, unseen beings connected to the land may experience the deepest well-being, happiness, and joy, freedom, if they choose it. That they are released from the suffering that occurred on the land. We dedicate the energy to the release of trauma of the land. To the liberation of the land and the liberation of our bodies from trauma, and all bodies from the trauma of systematic oppression. And we turn our attention to Shantideva's prayer, which we'll recite 3 times together, and it'll show up in the chat box. Let's begin. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements, such as the earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Thank you all so much for your practice. So we have two questions. Well, the second question, may I suggest the Facts of Life theme song for the next Lonesome Valley Dance It Out? I think that sounds appropriate to me. So I'll make sure Sister Sonata gets that. So if this question here, is love or forgiveness of perpetrators of the murder of a loved one an outgrowth of emotional labor without which they could dissociation or ego or self-absorption, i.e. being about I want to feel better, so I'm simply declare love or forgiveness. Okay. The one an outgrowth of emotional. Okay. So if I understand the question, I think I get the heart of the question. I may be unclear. Sometimes it's like the way things are worded, it can send me off in another direction. But let me try. Yeah, and so it is like when we forgive and experience this love for a perpetrator, you know. But when it's authentic forgiveness, love, I think that sometimes, at least from my experience, I see a lot of performing forgiveness for perpetrators, and I think that forgiveness takes time, and when you know, so I remember very clearly, in 2012, in the Sandy Hook shooting with the little kids, in Connecticut. I remember, like it happened. I remember it happened on a Friday. And then on Sunday, there were parents of some of the kids who had been killed coming on national TV, really talking about how they had already forgiven the shooter. I just felt, I just didn't believe them. you know, um, I couldn't believe that. And I think that that was an expression of the ways in which we're trying to skip to something that feels better instead of going through the pain, the grief of loss. You know, I just want to perform this and get this over with. But that's not the nature of grief. Grief doesn't go away because I forgive. Um, it stays, it lingers, right? Um, I think that we have to, when when we've experienced hurt, or when someone has, created violence that's affected us, I think we have to tend to ourselves first and take care of ourselves before we start doing emotional labor for the person who committed the violence, the harm. That the person who committed the violence should be the last person we're doing emotional labor for. We need to tend to ourselves, tend to those around us who have been affected, and give ourselves time to do the healing for ourselves, so that so that we have the energy to turn back to the perpetrator, and work on forgiveness. So, basically forgiveness is just when I start loving you again. And loving again doesn't mean I like you, but loving means that, like, yeah, despite what you've done, I want you to be happy, but you also have to be held accountable. And it takes time to get back to that. Yeah. It just doesn't, disassociation, of course, is definitely a part of this. Of course, when something really intense happens, we kind of flee the body because that's the safest thing to do. Unconsciously, this is really unconscious. We're not just saying, okay, we're not actually saying, okay, shit has happened, I'm going to leave my body. It just happens. It's one of our trauma, and this disassociation like that is actually it's built into our survival techniques. When things get too overwhelming, we have this short circuit of this association. You know, and with disassociation too, it's just that it's hard to experience healing through disassociation. So, like, the first stage maybe is working on embodiments. And I think you can ask the earth to do that. Ask the earth to create the causes and conditions for us to come back into the body. When I say come back into the body, to bring awareness, perception back into our physicality. There's no healing without the earth, right? There's really not much that can happen without the earth. This is why the earth is so important for me now in my practice. This is why, land acknowledgement in the way that we've done is so important. Not just acknowledging the land and say, well, these people live on the land, but to connect to the experiences of past inhabitants of the land that are still present. Again, the energy of the earth is an element that holds things. Like, it's a receptacle. So we have, all these, like, really amazing, gems and crystals, and precious, like, rocks and so forth that are our earth, right? And a lot of these gems and rocks, these crystals they hold information, they hold data, right? That's one of the functions of the earth. So the earth remembers. The earth remembers, right? And so the earth is always waiting to show us what it has remembered, but many of us are terrified. to connect to that, and rightfully so, because I mean, there's so much that's happened, and many of us, and I know we're going on a little long, but I just need to say this. I think that one of the things that we are having to do is build the capacity to hold the truth. And when we talk about the nature of samsara, you have to understand that the reality, the truth of things is already far beyond anything that we can imagine. There are countless realities, countless truths associated with this one moment, this one experience of living on the land and the earth. And then over time, your practice is really about creating the spaciousness to say, you know what, everything is an expression of my mind. The ugliness and the joy and beauty, all the same thing. The most horrific, violent, ugly thing that's happened is the exact nature of the most beautiful, sweetest, amazing, joyful thing that's ever happened. It's the same thing. And that's basic theory of mind. It's all the same thing. Right? And what we're trying to do is touch into the nature. That one, we call it one taste. Get into the one taste, which is just the expression of emptiness, space, and potential that pervades everything. We're trying to get devoted to that. We're trying to get devoted to that. I'm not devoted to forms and appearances. I'm devoted to the heart of emptiness. That's where wisdom and compassion spring from, is the emptiness itself, the clarity and the care. Medicine Buddha, all the deities of tantric deity practice, the wisdom, what I call wisdom deities, right? Wisdom deities are expression of emptiness itself, like specifically expressions, like they arise from the interplay of space, emptiness, and energy that are benevolent in nature. And they're only arising as a skillful means to take us back, to lead us back to the heart of reality, to the emptiness itself. Right? So at the end of our practice, often traditionally, we do the desolation, the dissolving, right? So creation and completion, which is the main part of a Vajrayana practice, where we imagine something and then we see it dissolve at the end. Part of what's dissolving is our ego back into emptiness. When we become the deity and dissolve back into emptiness, that's the deity taking our hand and guiding us into the experience of emptiness. Okay, so that is it for tonight. Thank you all so much for your practice. Take a look at our calendar this week and join us for anything that Bhumi Smash is doing. I have a panel on Saturday on sexual misconduct and sanghas that I'm doing with Dr. Shante Paradigm Smalls and Joanna Harper. Her last name isn't Harper anymore, but other female-identified, gender non-conforming teachers getting together. We're talking about patriarchy, whiteness, and sangha abuse, and that you can find that somewhere. I don't. It's definitely on Twitter. It's all over Twitter, but we'll get it on to Slack or something that we're part of. Anyway, thank you all so much, and I'll see you all again. Whenever. So please be well, take care of yourself. Please do some movement. Please get some water, and have fun. Thanks, everyone.